Dory and Miguel led a peaceful life until mysterious events began to surround the couple. One night at a restaurant, Miguel witnessed a tense conversation between Dory and a stranger, and to his surprise, the next day, Dory mysteriously disappeared, leaving Miguel desperate for answers for 3 long years. When he finally found her, he was about to dive into a plot full of secrets and mysteries involving his wife. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Dory was a newcomer to the city. She was moving into that building where she hoped to rebuild her life. Dory didn't carry many things with her, just 2 suitcases in which her entire life was contained. As she climbed the steps to the building entrance, a gentle breeze swayed her brown hair and made her clothes move gracefully. When she entered the elevator, Dory felt nervous, but at the same time, a spark of excitement began to ignite within her. She was leaving behind a painful past and was determined to write a new chapter in her story. The city was a place where no one knew her, where she could be whoever she wanted to be. On the second day after her move, Dory was on her way to take the elevator back to her apartment after exploring the city a bit, when she noticed a tall, smiling young man approaching the same elevator. It was Miguel, her downstairs neighbour. The elevator arrived and they entered together. She pressed the button for her floor and waited. Dory felt a jolt and the elevator stopped abruptly between 2 floors. She pressed the emergency button, but nothing happened. Dory began to get nervous and her imagination started to wander to the worst possible scenario. What if no one knows we're stuck here? What if the cables snap and the elevator plummets? What if we run out of air? She began voicing her concerns out loud. Before she could continue with her worries, Dory was interrupted by Miguel's spontaneous laughter. Dory, you have quite an imagination, but I believe we're safe, and the chances of something so dramatic happening are practically nil. Miguel's laughter was contagious, and Dory couldn't help but smile despite her anxiety. She realized she was letting her imagination run wild and that Miguel was right. The situation, though inconvenient, was no reason to panic. Miguel continued to cheer Dory up with funny stories and jokes, helping her relax and momentarily forget about the tight space of the elevator. His positive and relaxed attitude made the time pass quicker than Dory could have imagined. Hours passed and finally, the firefighters arrived to rescue them. Dory and Miguel stepped out of the elevator, still laughing at Dory's exaggerated worries. She felt grateful for having Miguel's fun company during that unexpected situation. Miguel smiled with that irresistible charm he had. I know we've already spent quite some time together stuck in the elevator, but would you have dinner with me? He asked humorously. Dory looked at him with a mischievous glint in her eyes and replied with a smile. Only if you promise we won't have to take any elevators together. They laughed together, sharing the relief of that light-hearted moment after the unusual situation. It was there, in the hallway of the building, that Miguel and Dory set up their first date. Miguel and Dory's relationship was filled with fun moments and adventures, but there was a mysterious aspect about Dory that intrigued Miguel. There was a mystery hanging over Dory, a shadow she carefully kept hidden in her past. Miguel was a naturally curious person, and occasionally he tried to learn more about Dory's past. He asked subtle questions, wanting to know the experiences that shaped the incredible woman she was today. However, Dory always diverted the topic, smiling gently and saying she preferred to focus on the future. What happened in the past is over, Dory would say to Miguel. I prefer to think about the present and the future we have ahead. I don't think what I left behind deserves to be relived. He knew she had lost her parents when she was a teenager, but beyond that, there was very little information about her personal history. Dory was careful with her words, always measuring what she shared about her daily life and past experiences. She liked to talk about her tastes, her adventures, and her plans for the future. But when it came to her past, she kept a protective barrier around the deepest memories. As Dory and Miguel's relationship matured, the trust and love between them grew even more. They shared special moments, laughter, and challenges, and the certainty that they wanted to be together became undeniable. One day, during a romantic, candlelit dinner, they made an important decision. They decided to live together. The idea of sharing a home was exciting for both of them. The decision to live together represented an even greater commitment in their relationship, and they were ready to face the challenges and joys that cohabiting would bring. While Dory was organising her clothes in the new wardrobe she now shared with Miguel, a folder slipped from her hands, scattering some papers. Swiftly, she began to gather them, but Miguel bent down to help her. It was then that he saw something that deeply confused him, an identity document with Dory's photo, but the name on the document was Danielle. Dory noticed Miguel's surprised look and quickly pulled the document from his hand. "It's a fake ID that I and some friends had and used when we were younger to get into nightclubs and drink," Dory explained, justifying the presence of that document. Miguel wasn't sure if he was convinced by that story, but he decided to set aside his doubts. The two continued their lives together, and one night Miguel invited Dory for a special dinner at an upscale restaurant. He wanted to celebrate his recent job promotion. The two were well-dressed and radiant on that special night for Miguel. During dinner, Dory got up to go to the bathroom. Miguel became intrigued when several minutes passed and Dory didn't return. Deciding to check if everything was okay, Miguel got up and, from a distance, saw Dory talking to a man. She was gesticulating a lot and it didn't seem to be a friendly conversation. When Dory noticed Miguel approaching, she moved away from the man. Concerned, Miguel asked, "Who was that man, Dory? Why did you seem so nervous?" Dory dodged the question and replied with a somewhat forced smile, "It was just a man asking me to check if his wife was in the women's bathroom." For the rest of the night, Miguel noticed that Dory was visibly apprehensive. She seemed distracted and kept looking around, as if she were searching for something or someone. Miguel was worried about Dory's change in behaviour, and on several occasions insisted on knowing if everything was all right. Dory kept assuring Miguel that everything was great, even though her expression and actions said otherwise. She tried to smile and participate in the conversation, but the tension in the air was palpable. The next day, Dory woke up early and decided to prepare a hearty breakfast for Miguel. The two sat at the table and shared breakfast together that morning. It was a quiet and intimate moment. As they finished their coffee, Dory mentioned that she would be going to work a little later that day. As they prepared to leave, the two said their goodbyes warmly. Dory snuggled into a long hug with Miguel. They exchanged a passionate kiss before parting to follow their daily routines. But that day would not be just another ordinary day. A surprise awaited Miguel when he got home later in the afternoon. After a long day at work, Miguel arrived at the apartment expecting to find Dory. However, instead of Dory, he found a note carefully placed on the dining table. "Miguel, forgive me. I love you. Be happy." A lump formed in Miguel's throat as he read the words. His heart raced, and a deep sense of anxiety took hold of him. He ran to the closet, his heart pounding. To his despair, all of Dory's clothes were gone. Dory had left. Miguel stood there, stunned, holding the note in his hands, trying to process what had happened. Dory's farewell words echoed in his mind, and he wondered why she had left and what could have led to this sudden decision. Miguel felt desperate and determined to find her. He called friends, but no one seemed to know her whereabouts. It was clear she hadn't gone to work that day, which only added to his concern. Miguel decided to turn to the police for help. The authorities didn't have much to offer, as it seemed Dory had left of her own volition, and there was no evidence of anything criminal having taken place. The situation left Miguel even more frustrated and helpless. He hired private detectives in the hope of finding some clue that would lead him to Dory. Sleepless nights, days full of anxiety and uncertainty, turned into a relentless search for the whereabouts of his beloved. Despite all the efforts and resources dedicated to the search for Dory, her disappearance remained a mystery. 3 long years had passed since Dory had vanished from Miguel's life, and he had never been able to come to terms with that mystery. He knew, deep in his heart, that something had happened to cause her to leave in such an abrupt manner. Miguel tried to continue his life as best as he could, but the void left by Dory always accompanied him. A work assignment took him to another city, far from the one he used to call home. As he walked through the center of the unfamiliar city, his heart nearly stopped when he passed someone whose face was unmistakably familiar. It was Dory. Dory hurried by, distracted and completely unaware of Miguel's presence. He was shocked to see her, and the urge to call out her name was irresistible. "Dory!" he shouted, hoping that she would come to him, that they could finally clarify what had happened in those 3 years of separation. Dory turned, surprised, and her eyes met Miguel's. However, instead of approaching, she ran in the opposite direction, leaving Miguel stunned and confused. The opportunity to clarify the mystery of her disappearance was right there before his eyes, and Miguel knew he couldn't let her escape again. When Miguel finally caught up to Dory, he saw that she had tears in her eyes and her expression was a mix of sadness and despair. She said urgently, "Miguel, you need to stay away from me. It is not safe to be with me." Dory took Miguel to a nearby coffee shop. "Miguel, there is a part of my past that haunts me, something that forces me to stay hidden. I didn't want to involve you in this, and that's why I left." Dory took a deep breath and began to share her story. "A few years ago, I was invited to a party by a friend. I didn't know many people there, but I already had a feeling that they were not of good character. During that party, a group of young people started a fight. Instinctively, I began to film the commotion, not knowing that this fight would result in the death of a young man. The one responsible for this tragedy was the son of a prominent politician in the city. When this politician found out that I had footage incriminating his son, he started to pursue and threaten me." Dory continued with eyes full of painful memories. "I never revealed those images because I knew the boy's father had influence in the police and I always feared for my safety. That's why I left and tried to stay hidden, hoping he would give up looking for me. That day at the restaurant, the man was someone sent by the politician. They had found me, and then I realized I had to leave. My priority was to protect you from this mess, Miguel. That document you saw is actually my real name. My name is Danielle, but I had to assume another identity to escape." Miguel was shocked by the twists and turns of this story, seeming something worthy of a suspense film. "Dory, we know the politician has influence in the police, but what if we take these images to the press? If we make these images public and you report the threats, it will be clear that if anything happens to you, the blame will fall on the politician. This would surely prevent him from doing anything against you, and it would be a way to seek justice." When the images and the whole story went public through Miguel's friend who worked at a major news channel, there was a huge repercussion. The politician's son was arrested, facing the consequences of his actions, and the father would be subjected to an investigation due to the threats and for covering up his son's actions. Finally, Dory could breathe a sigh of relief, no longer needing to hide and live in fear. She had found the courage to face her past and bring forth the truth that had been buried for so long. Miguel and Dory resumed their relationship on a new foundation of trust, now without secrets from the past to obscure their future. They faced together the challenges that life imposed on them, and with love and mutual support, found a path to the peace and happiness they so deserved. Now, they were ready to build a future together, based on sincerity, trust, and the love they had for each other. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.